they're all going in different directions. And I use tricks like fast forward, because when you go in fast forward, if they're all stars, they all go in the same direction. You know, these things are all moving. But what was very interesting is they're saying, how far is the tether? Well, the tether is now 100 miles. And they zoom with their incredible zoom in on it. And you see some of these spheres in front of the tether, and some of absolutely clearly, no problem at all, they're behind the tether. And if the tether's 12 miles, and these are half the size of the tether going behind it at 100 miles away, they're not specks of ice.
Well, even for me, I find it hard to believe that they could be crystals then if
but again, I'm merely saying that, you know, I'd like that I'm just saying what they can't be. And I've never heard of a 6-mile ice crystal that's spotted crystal clear 100 miles away, you know, etc. So there's hundreds of those examples. Then they've called them on the different videos. One time they said they were shooting stars and meteors. Then the same phenomenon appears on the next flight, and it's ice crystals. And then the next phenomenon appears on the next flight, and it's debris. You see what I mean? They've already established it on STS-70-something that it's...
I seem to remember something about fireflies at one stage from a long time ago.
I believe this spherical phenomena first appeared to John Glenn as early as 1962. And he did, and it continued. We have documentation from various publications that shows that they know clearly. They didn't have an answer for 3 to 4 space flights. They had an answer to what, you know, the blue haze around the Earth is. You know, it's they had an answer to just about everything else. But there's this very interesting thing about 3 or 4 flights in, where it says John Glenn's fireflies spotted over Perth. They're still calling them John Glenn's fireflies. And we have an astronaut making the comment on the 25th anniversary of the moon flight. He says, it's hard to believe, but he says it's a fact that we thought that John's fireflies, again, Glenn's fireflies, were living critters. Now, at no time have I've read everything, and at no time have I ever heard that before, that NASA concluded originally that the fireflies were alive. So they were still calling them John Glenn's fireflies 4 flights in. There's another interesting thing. If you look at John Glenn's original photos, which I have, which he bought a camera at a Cocoa Beach drugstore, even though the shuttle or the whatever capsule that I've forgotten, even though they had a camera on that, he took his own. And when he saw the fireflies, and it's all documented, and it's even in the movie The Right Stuff, he holds the camera up while the fireflies are above his head, and he says, I better film or you guys are going to think I'm nuts. And when you see those pictures, and you see the pictures of the shuttle today and the Mir, you see the same phenomena.
Sounds like it might be
spherical.
An interesting exercise to show John Glenn the footage that you've now got and let him comment on that.
I challenge NASA, JPL, Story Musgrave, astronauts, and especially James Hoberg to debate me. Because it's one of those situations where if they haven't done the homework I've done, and they don't have the video I have, and they haven't done the research, and that they don't have a chance. I wouldn't be able to downlink what I got. I wouldn't be able to find the things I've found and do it consistently like I have been able to do if NASA really wanted to hide it.
Although you did mention to me, Martin, that they shifted a satellite at one stage, or...
Yes, they've done some shifty things, and there are military people as well as the non-military people. For instance, there's a flight I have where it's basically the entire flight was the control room except for the spacewalk. The spacewalk was to test the new backpacks, and it's a famous walk because the fellow flipped around, the astronaut flipped around and couldn't stop. So that's what made the news. But if you look at the whole spacewalk, and everybody in the media had the chance, there's a point where he says, there's not, Mark, will you look out there? There's an object right in front of you. And the military fellow says, I don't know what you're talking about. Now just think to yourself, if I said there's a bee about to sting you, wouldn't you go, I wonder where that is, or something other than, I don't know what you're talking about? First of all, what do you mean you don't know what I'm talking about? If I'm in outer space and I'm flying around and my partner says there's an object in front of you, I wouldn't say, I don't know what you're talking about, and then his next line is, never mind. And then the third astronaut says, am I missing something? And he says, don't worry, the lens filter came off, now confirming the size and how close it must have been. Going, and it's flying off at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. Now, when they first mentioned the object, the shuttle camera, you couldn't see it. So I wasn't looking for it. They drew my attention to it. I looked, and there the object emerged. And the third thing he's saying to the third astronaut is, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You know, it's the camera filter. And then he even confirms, off 10, 11 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock, you know. And then there's a pause, and the control room below tells him to stay vector. Shut up. Stay on course. Continue with what you were supposed to do. And then they continued as if nothing happened. As if nothing had happened. Yet it's right on tape. Audio, video, and you see the object they're referring to. So, but my point was, they didn't hide that from me. They're challenging us to find it. And my only question is, how come there aren't more of us out there finding it? This is a big world, and most humans love mysteries, and the video is available, and many people have home dishes. And even though NASA moved the satellite almost onto the horizon after they found out what we were doing, we still were able to get the satellite. I just don't see, I've had no agents at my house. I've communicated with the Canadian Space Agency, but I can't, for their protection at this point, I can't give you the name, but let me just say that we ran it by our own country's space agency due to the connections we had.
And what was their comment?
That it was the most popular underground tape among the astronauts. You know, that it was the one they all wanted to have a copy and show their friends at night. Like, that was the reaction. This is a great tape. We love looking at it. Everyone just thinks it's the greatest. No, the Canadian Space Agency has been very cooperative. That's what I'd like to say. The Canadian Space Agency has been cooperative. I communicated with Washington headquarters and received an answer. And we've been receiving answers from JPL in California. Everyone's talking to us. No one's threatening us. And all the video has been totally available the whole time. So I don't hold that NASA is going out of their way. I think they make it difficult, like anybody. When I used to hide Easter eggs for my niece and nephew, you don't make it too easy. My dog doesn't make it easy to find the bones he buried. But it's not easy to do. This is very hard. I want to emphasize that even for me, this has been a very hard but fun thing to do. And I think the preponderance, I think you have to do what I did. You have to record every moment of every flight over a period of years if you're looking to substantiate something of this magnitude and importance. I took what Professor Weinberg of Simon Fraser University said very seriously. If you really want to do this, duplicate it. Get it in every lighting condition. Get it under every circumstance. Get it in every circumstance you can. And the one that made me happiest, funny enough, was almost the last flights I recorded, because I got it in black and white. There was a CCD camera put on one of the flights, and I thought, that's the charge coupling device, which is an electronic way, rather than the old tubes, these big tubes that are slower on their scans. So as soon as the faster scanning and tube CCD was on the black and white, I challenged myself again. You should be able to find them, and I did. So I've got them in black and white, but I've got them under, and I know which camera. I now know where to look for them. I know what events. When in STS-80, when the door wouldn't open, you know, they had the spacewalk scheduled, and the door wouldn't open. I remember watching that and seeing all of this third phenomena, the second space phenomena, but the third phenomena, all around the door. And they were moving the door and trying to get it open. And I'd never seen this phenomena do that before. And then a flight or two later, the astronauts were commenting right on the feed that there was something had come through the door. They were seeing these flashing colored lights.
Oh, that flash. That light flashing off of the 15 there. I thought it was me. What? I just thought of it in my imagination. Yeah. I saw it too, so it's not. There was two of them. There's another one. What are those?
Those examples. Then they've called them on the different videos. One time they said they were shooting stars and meteors. Then the same phenomenon appears on the next flight, and it's ice crystals. And then the next phenomenon appears on the next flight, now 100 miles. And they zoom with their incredible zoom in on it, and you see some of these spheres in front of the tether, and some of absolutely clearly, no problem at all, they're behind the tether. That I'm just saying what they can't be. I've never heard of a 6-mile ice crystal that's spotted crystal clear 100 miles away, you know, etc. So there's hundreds of those. They're all going in different directions. And I use tricks like fast forward, because when you go in fast forward, if they're all stars, they all go in the same direction. You know, these things are all moving. But what was very interesting is they're saying, how far is the tether? Well, the tether is, and if the tether's 12 miles, and these are half the size of the tether going behind it at 100 miles away, they're not specks of ice.
Well, even for me, I find it hard to believe that they could be crystals then if
yeah,
if they're doing
but
that.
Again, I'm merely saying that, you know, I'd like...